Welcome to Shopper Matters, a podcast brought to you by the Independent Grocers Alliance. And now your host, Michael Laquier.
Hi, you're listening to Shopper Matters, the podcast exploring the fast-paced omni-channel world of retail and uncovering insights about consumer and shopper behavior that the brands need to know to connect more effectively. Shopper Matters is designed to bring you insights from industry leaders, actionable advice, and the latest thinking on what drives today's shoppers, highlighting the challenges that brands face and the opportunities that come from truly understanding how people live, shop, and make decisions. I'm Michael Laquier, the Vice President of Brand Development for the Independent Grocers Alliance. IGA is the world's largest global grocery network with well over 7,000 retail stores in over 30 countries, commonwealths, and territories. Before we get on to our guests, we want to ask you to consider following us on your preferred podcast listening app, if you don't already do so. Subscribing, whether it's on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, or another platform, will ensure you automatically receive new episodes as they are released. So let's dive in and uncover what drives success at retail today with shoppers. Let's talk about what matters today with our guest, Eran Harel, the Senior Vice President of Corporate Development and Strategic Partnerships at AppCard. So welcome, Eran. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Michael. How are you?
Great. So I'm super excited for this conversation. I think as we've gotten to know each other over the past year or so, there's been a ton of connections, both on a personal and professional level. So very excited to spend the time with you today. So first, if you could help our listeners understand a little bit better about your background and your role at AppCard, and obviously spend a little bit of time explaining AppCard.
Of course. So first and foremost, truly excited. And Michael, as you said, we know one another for years now, and have had the pleasure of and honor of collaborating in helping the IGA members communicate and engage with their shoppers, and that's what AppCard is about. I've been fortunate and privileged to join Yair and Amichai in forming the company some good 13 years ago. AppCard is a personalized marketing, shopper analytics, and digital coupons platform focused solely on the independent grocers. And in doing so, we help bridge the gap in between making data actionable, shopper engagement, and growth.
Awesome. Well, good. Sounds like a quite an interesting journey over the past 13 years. I'm sure lots of ups and downs, and excited to see where things are today and where things go in the future. So you touch on several things there that we'll explore a little bit more fully. But given that the podcast is called Shopper Matters, and given that you have 28 million of them within your system across all the rooftops, what seems to matter to shoppers more today than anything, given coming out of COVID and inflation and now tariffs, is value. So based on what you have seen and what you see on a daily basis, what do consumers value today and why?
This is an amazing question, which couldn't come in a better timing, because we see a significant shift in shopper and what they perceive as value. If during COVID time and up until last year, we were dealing with what we call or define cooking shoppers.
Say that again?
Cooking shoppers, those who buy at the store and cook at home.
Okay.
Which we've seen an increase.
I'm guilty of that.
We've seen an increase during COVID significantly, and of course we've had all of those TikTok or maybe I shouldn't say TikTok, but social media.
It depends on when this podcast airs, if TikTok's still around, right?
Exactly. But we've seen that trend of people really posting everything that they cook and so on and so forth. We are now back into the pre-COVID era where shoppers are eating shoppers, where they started spending more on food outside of the grocery store. And as a result, value and experience becomes ever more important for the shoppers, for the grocery stores, in order to continue and attract their shoppers. And from our perspective, it's not just the value that needs to be shown or seen, but we call it the V in the power of three, meaning that the shoppers needs to see value, which is price. Shopper needs to resonate with the values of the store. And independent grocers and IGA member are the center of their community. So there need to be a linkage with the values of the store. And obviously they need to feel valued. And you said yourself, we'll share why we don't believe in loyalty per se, right? So they need to feel valued. They need to be appreciated for their business.
That's interesting. So interesting, the middle one there in terms of sharing values of the store. In today's world, there seems to be a lot of shifts from whether it's towards DEI, away from DEI, sustainability, lots of things that are, perhaps additional layers to at the end of the day, right? Pricing is important, as you mentioned. How do, other than the community aspect, how can retailers make sure that they're communicating their values and communicating their value proposition to the shopper to make sure they understand that sort of middle V?
I think that there's multiple ways in approaching that. You can look at it from as basic of hiring from within the community, or helping with marginalized parts of the community and helping there. It can be from sourcing local, and IGA is preaching for that day in and day out, in terms of sourcing local and helping local farmers or helping local vendors and things of that nature. It's about supporting the local school. It's about supporting the local church and temple or home, whichever affiliation one has. I think that those are the easy things for one to do. But at the same time, we also see values today that are surrounding health and wellness, and being more conscious of that, making that available to shoppers when required. So the way where the shopper and the store meets values wise can really be on multiple fronts and need to be taken as such.
And that's, there's a lot of stuff to unpack there, but I guess more importantly for a retailer, how do you balance communicating all those things? You gave us a list of probably 5 to 7 things that could be an element of connecting from a values perspective, but how do you balance that with the first V in terms of shoppers always looking for, you called it value, but you also talked about price. So how do you balance communicating your value or your values proposition with your price value proposition?
And I would actually even challenge that question and comment with the valued, which is super important here, because it's very easy to flood our shoppers and our customers and our guests with a lot of communication, whether it is email, whether it is signage at the store, whether it is a TV advertisement, whether it is, you name the touch point, through the mobile with advertisement. There's a sea of things. I think that the most important thing is to communicate with the shopper with things that are relevant to her or to him or today, as opposed to just everything. So if we have a shopper, and IGA is doing a lot of it with clubs and baby club and pet club and things of that nature, and we know that we have a household that has a baby, then we need to communicate with things that are relevant for that household, as opposed to everything. If we know that someone is more on the vegan side, so let's not communicate anything on our meaty part. So the importance is really to know the shoppers. And once you are able to know and understand the shopper preferences, then the communication becomes really relevant. And then it resonates.
Yeah, so you're speaking my language and the language of this podcast, right? Shopper matters, and you said understanding the shopper is key and important. So we've had some fun conversations on this next topic a few times. As you know, my background, I ran the My Cook Rewards digital loyalty program at the Coca-Cola Company. We had 25 million households, 25 million members in the program. I have taught a graduate level data-driven marketing class where the topic of loyalty comes up, near and dear to my heart. But this notion of hating loyalty programs. Explain from your perspective why you hate loyalty programs and why you haven't described to this point AppCard as a loyalty platform.
So maybe I should clarify. I don't hate loyalty programs. I just believe that loyalty is not something that you do, but it's something that you earn. And as a result of that, in order to build the right program that will result by enticing the shopper's behavior towards higher recency, higher frequency, greater spend, can only be achieved if we really know and make the data actionable and communicate with the shopper at the right touch point with the right offer. When we are able to do that, then we can earn the loyalty. So the loyalty is the goal, but it's not necessarily something that you can do. And that's where the difference, I think, that also lies at AppCard versus other opinions, is that we want to really put the customer in the center and make sure that we communicate with them and delivers that value.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the quote unquote olden days with CRM programs when that was all the rage. We're going to just implement the program and we're going to have great relationships with customers. That failed when people realized you need to have strategy behind it. You need to have the right technology. You need to have the right people directing it and the right programs to make it happen. I think loyalty programs or applications were very similar, where people rushed in because of the value that they thought that they could come from it, or that result as you mentioned it. But you can't just implement it and set and forget and hope it works. You've got to have the right strategy, as we talked earlier, the right value proposition, and make sure that you have the right touch points and the right technology to allow that right offer at the right time to come to fruition. I often joke that I was going to, my next great speech when I was on the My Cook Rewards business was loyalty programs are stupid and rewards programs are idiotic. And I didn't mean it either. It was more just about the fact that when people think rewards program or loyalty program, that they cheapen the brand. They don't necessarily do what, as you said, they don't necessarily lead to loyalty. They can or they can't. It's really, a blunt instrument. It's the strategy behind it that makes it. And I think the notion of loyalty being the end goal versus the technology or a program, very, very much aligned with that in terms of how that happens and where that should be.
Yeah. So I think that when we talk about it, it's a vicious cycle or a magic triangle, if you will, where you have a technology that needs to be easy, needs to be inclusive, needs to be integrated. You have data that is actionable and is accessible, and then, which is, in my mind, the most important pillar, and something that we offer together, IGA and AppCard, to our members, is service. Because many of them never manage their business day in and day out based on data. They are not marketeer per se. They are amazing operators.
Yep.
They are grocers in heart and soul. But that's where expertise, that's where knowledge, that's where recommendation, that's where planning, that's where strategy come into place in order to make it engaging. And as you said yourself, it's not a set and forget. It's something that you need to do and cater and work on the calendar and like any other thing, put your thoughts and mind into it. And funny enough, just had a conversation the other day with a colleague, a mutual colleague of ours, which reminded exactly on that. We were in Green Bay alongside with your colleagues from Adway the other day, and they presented a case study on the store that have seen a significant reduction of about 45% of their shoppers because shoppers' movement and participation. And then your colleague have indicated that the main reason for that was that a store that was about a 20-minute drive away started their rewards and loyalty program. And not knowing that I was sitting next to the subject of that case study, I raised my hand and I told John that I apologize. And he said, "What? Why are you apologizing?" I said, "Because we were the one who launched that rewards and loyalty program 20 minutes away." And the guy was looking at me like that. I said, "You are to be blamed." I said, "No, it's just you were not taking care of your customers."
Okay.
And that's the funny thing when you do it right.
Yeah. So speaking of doing it right, 3 of your partners, IGA Stores, Hanson's, KJ's Markets, and Nam de Moon, were just named the 2025 IGA Retailer of the Year. Given your work with them and your overall approach, what can you tell us about how they work to get to know the shopper better, and leveraging those V3 and your tool to ultimately better work with shoppers, get to know them better, and deliver more value?
So we couldn't be more excited. Second year in a row where we have multiple IGA members that are recognized as the IGA members of the year. And interestingly enough, KJ's, Hanson's, Nam de Moon cater completely different communities. They have different characteristics, different goals. One with a fuel program centric, the other one without. One which is very international type, huge stores, as we know, Nam de Moon, with 30 lanes per store, and the other ones are very small community. And the importance here was to make sure that we cater for each and every one of them. But more importantly, allow them to communicate with 100% of their shoppers, as opposed to just those that want to have a mobile app or those that just want to have this or that, but really catering for 100% of the shoppers. This is the first and most important thing. We need to make it simple, easy for the shoppers to engage. And then, obviously, sit with the stores and understand their competition, understand their goals, understand the interaction, and then build a program, whether it is point-based and whether it is rewards catalog, whether it is because one's wholesaler is more active in sourcing from vendors versus another.
Yep.
But the one thing that is common for all 3 of them is that we do have a dedicated AppCard's success manager who works with each and every one of them, that is becoming an extension of their team. And that's something that we definitely pride ourselves for.
Well, it sounds like it's a two-way street. So part of it is, again, you're not going to apply or adopt AppCard or other platforms and all of a sudden become shopper obsessed. So I think, it's kudos to those retailers for being shopper obsessed and trying to better understand them and cater to them regardless of platform, but definitely having a helping hand, a firm hand on the steering wheel in terms of technology and learning from all the stores that you operate with certainly helps focus that. And it's good to see that, as we talked about, very different shopper base, very different geography, and not adopting a rote off-the-shelf program that may or may not work for them. So I think that's great. And, again, kudos to Hanson's and KJ's and Nam Da Moon for winning the Retailer of the Year, but also you guys for being a great partner to them as well as to IGA.
And when we talk about making their program successful, I think it first and foremost stems from the fact that we need to, as mentioned, look at the data and make the data available in real time. And by that, doing it in a way that it's for 100% of the transactions, not just the rewards and loyalty members. And why is that important? It's important because then inherently, anything and everything we do is A/B tested. What do I mean by that? Is that we are able for each and every of our initiatives, able to look at what our members with an offer, members without an offer, and the non-members are doing. Because oftentimes we will be asked, where is my ROI? How do I know that it works? How would I measure success? And again, one would want to have their average basket increase. The other one would want to have their yet another trip to the store. Another one would want to have more private label items to be purchased and so on and so forth. And I think that the important thing is when we design it to ensure that we help them as an operator as a whole, but also allow them to see the result and measure it right there and then. And I'll give you an example. We've had a mutual grocer who've sourced 300 lobsters too many, and for a couple of stores.
Well, let's see. I think I have a list of about 100 retailers who have done that. So
So funny enough, that they were able to go into the AppCard merchant site and immediately segment all of the shoppers who bought in their seafood department, and create a text message for those who opted in, or email for those who didn't, and reach out and with a great offer for the next couple of hours. And not only that, they were also able to set a 10% control group, meaning that they will be able to randomly, the system, the AI, will randomly select shoppers that will not get the promotion and then see the true lift that was created. Yep. Interestingly enough, they ran out of lobsters within 2 hours. But looking into the ability to do something like that, where you no longer need to take the data from the point of sale, download it to some kind of a segmentation tool or Excel, upload it to an email tool, and then hope for the best because nothing is connected. Sure. Here, simply on the merchant side, go in, look for everybody who bought in the seafood, and immediately send that. Also save them time. And that's not less important to talk about our grocers.
Yeah, so you just made the buyer who bought wrong, like now the hero because he ran out of lobsters and sold a whole bunch, right?
There you go.
So that's a great example. And I was going to explore a little bit of ROI because to some who have not implemented systems like this, I don't want to call them loyalty programs, right? It seems like a lot of work and a lot of effort. And so the question of return on investment, whether that's, as you mentioned, time or dollars, comes up often. That's a great example of a program that was already implemented that was able to get the retailer out of a jam. But what have you seen in terms of those who maybe are sort of barren landscapes versus those who have adopted programs such as this? What kind of return are they seeing?
So there's multiple ways to look into the return. And I will explain. And by the way, it can be for those who've never had a program and just implemented it for the first time, or those who have had a program and wanted to graduate into a more elaborated program. So there's the ROI that can be measured, as mentioned earlier, based on a control group on a single promotion. And then we can see those with an offer, those without an offer. We can see the lift, whether it is 12%, 15%, 20%, meaning that so many shoppers have bought more when they had the offer. So this is one easy way to measure ROI. There's another way to measure ROI, which is obviously same store sales year over year, or item movement, and things of that nature. We oftentimes also see ROI when we do promotion, for example, with you guys, or with private label, where we do a brand switch because of a higher margin item.
Is it?
But we also see ROI on things that one would not necessarily expect from a loyalty platform, which brings us to the same thread of thoughts of that you and I share. And I'll give an example. We had the other day a grocer here in the office. They came to visit us, and the head of their HR was in the meeting. So in order to make it interesting for him as well, I asked, by the way, do you know who is your number one cashier? And he said, yes, it's so-and-so, and she's so great, and whatnot. I said, you know what? Okay. Guess what? On the merchant side, on the reports, there's also cashier performance. And sure enough, it was not that person who he thought it was. It was actually a temp employee. A week after, we got an email that temp employee now became a full-time employee. So sometimes the ROI is not where it meets the eye. Again, in the data, and this was a good side of the data, but we also offer, for example, automated reports for possible revenue leakage, abnormal return of an item, sweethearting. And again, making the data actionable. So, but going back to ROI, pure ROI from rewards program, one thing that we are really, really proud of is that oftentimes when we do points programs, and this is again across many of our stores, the increase in basket when shoppers redeem their points is on average 23% higher average ticket.
Okay.
And when you look into that and you see that on average a shopper will be redeeming their points 8 times a year, then you have about $160 increase per shopper per year in their
being on the program.
Being on the program, that's a meaningful ROI.
Absolutely. So let's go back to something you said real quick. So we work together, IGA and AppCard, in terms of automating offers through our national digital ad. And I've heard you talk about the value of saving time, not just helping sell more or cut out costs. Can you talk about what you've seen in terms of retailers who are using your system? What time are they saving in addition to getting those unique offers from IGA?
Well, a good night's sleep will be enough. We were told by many of our grocers that on average we save about 5 hours a week, which is huge. It's almost a good night's sleep for many of them. And the reason for which is that instead of the grocer needing to go to the website and download the file and work the pricing at the point of sale, and then at the end of the week to extract the report and send you guys the report in order to be reimbursed and qualifying the transaction and so on and so forth, we do it all for them. So there's nothing that they need to do. We work with the team. We get everything, we automate it, we send the reports, and then eliminated the headache and help them focus on other things that are more important for them.
They should be focused on. Yeah, that's a great example, because I think oftentimes people are, well, what's this going to cost me? And perhaps what am I going to get back in terms of value from, whether that's offers or digital coupons or even ROI. But if you can save me time, that's super valuable. And I think oftentimes that gets lost because it's kind of intangible. If I'm spending 5 hours doing something today, that's kind of a sunk cost. And if you save me 5 hours, and if I think about it that way and multiply it by my hourly rate, that's huge. But oftentimes I think it gets thought of as, well, it just is what it is. And I'm looking for, if I'm paying X dollars for something, I want to be saving X dollars, something tangibly. But that time saving piece is super important. That's great.
And also have an ROI from a different perspective. And I'll give you 2 examples. We just had a sizable group out of Texas that used to be on a different program. And in that case, being on a mobile centric program, they've had a meaningful amount of shoppers throughout, but they were capped because not every shopper would be downloading the app.
Go figure.
With the AppCard in-lane terminal, and we've happened to launch them on the 26th of December. These guys have had previously 48,000 shoppers. We are a month or so into the program, and they've crossed 100,000 shoppers in their program.
Wow.
So you and I know what is the ROI of being now able to communicate with twice as many shoppers and influence their behavior.
That's huge.
So that's huge.
Yeah, I think when we were running the My Coke Rewards program and you had to open up the top and enter your numbers and all, it was interesting because people were like, that's so much work. But the fact that there was a tangible representation of the program, as opposed to just using your credit card and amassing points and forgetting about it. I think the average person is signed up for, last time I looked, like 21 different loyalty programs. And I bet you if you were to ask them to make a list, they'd probably come up with 3 or 4. So the fact that we coined this term lean in loyalty, because you had to be more active, you had to do more stuff. And what that resulted in was greater engagement. I won't say loyalty, but greater engagement between the members. So I'm not surprised when you make it more overt that there is better results and there's better engagement and better usage of the program.
Yep.
So let's talk, shift a little bit to a topic that's very timely and important, privacy. And so obviously bringing on, like you said, another 50,000 shoppers is great. But how do you counsel your retailers in terms of privacy?
So first of all, I'm not a lawyer. Well, here's a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. Yeah. I can't take it with a grain of salt.
No, you have good practice that you're already doing a disclaimer before you talk. So that's great.
There you go.
Good news is we're not recording this.
The privacy is a major issue and one that should never ever taken lightly. We have about 23 different states nowadays with different privacy practices and laws. We have several more that are due to kick it out in July. We started the conversation with values and feeling valued and seeing the value, and this is part of it. Being able to cater for the shopper and ensure that the shopper's privacy is kept, the information is maintained. We help them to exercise their rights, whether it is to be deleted or not sell the data. Obviously, AppCard does not sell data, but but the law requires the shoppers to be able to indicate that, or whether to see what information is being collected. We definitely make sure that we help our grocers facilitate and ensure that part of making data actionable is exactly on that. Interestingly enough, part of these privacy laws and legislation also look into non-discriminatory actions. And part of it is also associated and affiliated with offers and rewards and others that are made available for those who wanted to be part of it or didn't want to share information, and so on and so forth. So very impactful for day-to-day, very impactful for retail media in this regard, which is a whole different thing.
Whole different topic. That's our next podcast together.
Wow. But then again, something that we are super sensitive to, and have been working with the best of guidance in order to ensure that we set our stores for success in this regard.
Yeah. Have you seen greater, I guess, focus from a shopper standpoint on their privacy, or stay about the same but more focused from a legislative standpoint?
Nope. You see it on both sides. You definitely see, obviously, California and others have, this is not new to them. This has been for a while now.
Sure.
But you definitely do see the importance of it. You definitely see shoppers ask to exercise their rights. You definitely see shoppers ensure that they know their rights also from communication, unsubscribe or opt in or any of those. So nope, shoppers are well aware, and shoppers are not shy to voice their rights being kept and protected.
Great. Well, as we get ready to close, are there any other last thoughts you have that we've not covered on topics that matter to shoppers today?
I think that shoppers wants to see value. And when we talked about it, but value can be viewed in a lot of different ways. And oftentimes, there's the actual cost and the perceived value. And this is something that the stores needs to be very cognitive to. You were with the My Coke rewards, and vendors are definitely part of that value exchange. And when we talk about that, which is obviously topic for another pod.
That's the one after the next one.
But when we talk about that value, we talked about this exchange, then there's more than just the grocers and the shoppers.
Okay.
There's also vendors in it.
Yeah, there's a sort of we used to talk, or we still do talk about, making sure that you get the triple win, both for the retailer, the shopper, and the brand. And obviously, it's got to work for partners too. But if you're not delivering in that sort of sweet spot triple win, right? If it's only works for the retailer's advantage, the brands and the shoppers are going to walk away. If it only works for the brands, then it's not going to work for the retailer. And if it only works for the shopper, then nobody's going to make any money. And like, as you said, the ROI is not going to be there. So real quick, as we talk about the future, I know AppCard and your team just announced some new updates leveraging AI into your system. You want to briefly talk about that before we move on?
Yes, of course. So funny enough, our AI and machine learning engine is something that we've been doing probably since 2019. So not anything breathtaking from our perspective, as we see AI as a buzzword and machine learning, because when we talk about the amount of data, catering 2,500 stores, 28 million shoppers, billions of transactions a year, then you have to have machine learning and AI in order to really make that data actionable and engage our shoppers. And with that being said, we called our AI engine Pinky. Yes, from Pinky in the Brain. That's where it came from. And the idea is to really help the independent grocers knowing how time constraints they are, to allow to automate the reach out to the shoppers so the shoppers do get the right offer at the right touch point. And what we've done with what we call Pinky 2.0 is that we've added layers to it. So if, for example, in the past, we looked at Michael and your
You don't want to look at Michael. Please don't.
And looked at your purchase history, and I will not disclose how often you buy Sherman toilet paper or anything like that. But that being said, we presented to you what we believed, not only you are likely to purchase based on your past history, but your future intent. What Pinky 2.0 is now doing is not only looking at Michael as a persona, but also looking at lookalike shoppers that may have had similar household behavior, similar purchase behavior, and so on and so forth, in order to further personalize recommendations, not only based on your past purchase, but also things that we believe that you would show interest because of those. And results are just amazing. We've seen 15% increase in item movement for items that we've recommended based on Pinky's 2.0. And this is really significant statistically, as mentioned, across 2,500 stores. So meaningful data.
That's great. Congratulations. Great way to end it, considering we started talking about values and V3 and all that. And I think, the focus on shoppers and their values and how you're delivering value to them and how you're connecting with their values, super important. So a big thank you to Eran Harel from AppCard for joining Shopper Matters in our podcast today. Stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to follow us on your preferred podcast listening episode. Thanks, Eran, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.